Queen Latifah deserves a spot on any list of New Jersey hip-hop, mainly because, in 2011, she came out in the late 80s, she's still relevant, and then what she did in the late 80s, early 90s was just amazing in a hip-hop sense, that she came right out the gate with 3 great albums, a couple of just anthem songs with Ladies First and UNITY, and during the whole period, she wouldn't just focus on making herself famous. She established Flavor Unit, kind of reached back down to New Jersey, and brought out Apache, brought out Naughty by Nature, made those guys big stars, and kind of made hit New Jersey kind of like a hub for hip-hop in the early 90s, which it really wasn't before that. And then what she's done since then has just been incredible. A ton of movies, every kind of movie you think of. She does action stuff, she does romantic comedy, she does serious movies, she does musicals. She's done a couple albums of like classic jazz songs, which have been received pretty well by that audience. Joe Budden's been out on the national stage since the early 2000s, and this past decade he's really held the torch for New Jersey hip hop, just repping Jersey City as hard as he possibly could. He signed to Def Jam in 2003, had the 6th single Pump It Up and the self-titled album, which sales-wise I don't think did what Def Jam was looking for, but artistically everybody that heard that album liked it, I will argue. And then then he was kind of quiet for a couple years, and then what he's done in the last few years between his internet grind, being really far ahead of the game with Joe Budden TV and constantly releasing the mood music mixtapes, and then forming Slaughterhouse, which is one of the sickest groups out there. Also, Joe's history with dating video girls is phenomenal. There's nobody even close. The guy's list of ex-girlfriends reads like a countdown of King Magazine's all-time greatest backshots. When they write the book about 90s hip-hop, the biggest thing about that is going to be the few years in the mid-90s and the Biggie, Tupac, East-West beef. But what's going to get forgotten, I think, is that right in the middle of all this gangsterism and shooting and killing and everybody wants to be a thug, was the Fugees came out and sold like 10 million records at the complete opposite side of the spectrum of what was going on in the music at that time. They made an album called The Score in '96, actually their second album, and basically almost every song was a single. What the Fugees did in 1996 was amazing, and to go back and listen to that album now, it's still a great album, but to think about what else was going on in the culture and what they presented, and the fact that it was so good, it broke through what was popular at the time, and it really became a massive pop sensation. Still got love for The Score, even though Proj went crazy on Twitter, Wyclef went crazy with cannabis and then running for the president of Haiti, and then Lauren went crazy by having like 1,000 kids and retiring to New Jersey and becoming a recluse. It pretty much turned out like the rapping version of the Cast of Different Strokes. 20 years ago this summer, Naughty by Nature introduced the world to the term OPP, and it's hard to argue anybody's done as much for Jersey hip-hop as those 3 guys have. KG is a respected producer, and especially what he was doing in the early 90s with those chopped up piano samples, nobody was doing that before him. And Treach is a sick rapper. Even on the big anthem records like Hip Hop Hooray and OPP, he's murdering those verses. You got to give Treach a lot of love on that. I think he gets slept on a little bit as a rapper. But Naughty by Nature, one of the first groups out there to start a clothing line with naughty gear and really do go hard on the merchandising side of things and really make their brand an international entity before anybody else really did that. Redman's been in the game a solid 2 decades, which is an eternity in hip-hop. He made his debut with EPMD and the Hit Squad back in the real early 90s. First time most people heard him was him murdering that verse on Headbanger, which is just one of the sickest verses ever. Then he immediately started a solo career with the album in '92, and just really hasn't looked back since. In the 90s, he had a string of classic and near-classic albums. In the 2000s, he linked up with Method Man for a collabo album, and then did a bunch of comedy stuff, which is just really funny. Obviously, everybody knows How High, the movie, and the Meth and Red TV show. But what he did probably better than anybody is link comedy into rhymes that you weren't laughing at him, you were laughing with him. So I think he obviously definitely influenced Eminem in that respect, and I'm not sure if he gets enough credit for that. But what he did by just being kind of like a lunatic that would say anything, but say it so technically precise and so on beat with these sick Eric Sermon beats, I think Redman is beyond reproach as being the best New Jersey hip-hop artist of all time.